Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and to another list spam. So this one is going to be for the Avanti and the accompanying book Death from Above, so the Italian paratroopers as well. We're also going to be using the dynamic point system just so we can get a few more medium heavy tanks involved in this list. So my style of making a list is I always work out what I'm going to be putting reserve before everything, just so I can put the minimum amount of units in reserve, because I don't want to be waiting all game to bring my list in. All this is designed to be more attacking or maneuvering, I suppose, depending on your opponent. All of them are 100 points. And I suppose the question is if you're new to the game, why pick Avanti? The Italians have some good stats. They're all careful, so they hit on 4s. They're confident trained, and depending on the unit, they can basically be veteran, depending on a rule called the 8 million bayonet dice roll, which you do at the start when the unit deploys. The only issue we'll have is their equipment ain't brilliant. Their tanks are quite light, slow, and don't have much punch, but their infantry are fairly good, and their artillery is good as well. But we'll have a little look at the stats once we look at the lists. Because there's not many lists in the formation, we will make some formations out of the build units you have in the command cards. So let's delve into the Avanti. Okay, so the first list we have is the tank company. So you can build it 3 different ways, I suppose. You can have it all as the M1441 tank, the SEMOVENTE, but the HQ will always be M1441, or you can do what I've done and gone for a mix. I tend to prefer the SEMOVENTE, slightly better armor, better gun, can fire a barrage as well, which is always good. But we'll have a look at their stats. In support, we have Parachute Assault Engineer Platoon. Very good stats on them. They also have 2 flamethrowers, and being pioneers, they can get through minefields easier. So you've got a lot of armor here. So if there's an avenue of attack blocked by a minefield, send these boys in, and they'll get rid of it for you. We've also got some scout cars to open up a spearhead option, although they're not particularly fast. And we also have 5 SEMOVENTE longs, so these have just got a much bigger gun to deal with the heavier armor which you will be facing, because the SEMOVENTE 75, although it's better than the M1441, still doesn't have that much of a kick, but the SEMOVENTE longs will. And for Italy is basically lucky card for Italian mid-war. So if you don't know what the lucky card does, you basically get 1 reroll for the game for 1 point, and this once per game. So this is the M1441. So stat-wise, pretty good, confident, careful, trained. Tactics rating is good, remount is good, the follow me is good, and you can see that second column. So basically you have a little green dice for the Italians. I think it's 2 sides. You have the Fascido symbol on it. If you roll it when this unit deploys, if you get it, you get the column to the right. So they become veteran and have 2 pluses for remounts and follow me's, which is nice. Speed-wise, tactical 10 is okay. They're not very fast on dashes. Armor's not brilliant. Even Crusaders are going to have fun against these. And the AT on their gun being 6. You know, if you're up against lighter armor, your Honeys, your Crusaders, yeah, you're okay. But when you start coming up against Grants, Shermans, Panzers, Valentines, you're not going to have a fun time. And that's why I don't tend to take them too much over the SEMOVENTE. But they do have a lot of MGs, so decent in that regards. So the SEMOVENTE, stat-wise, very similar, apart from because of being self-propelled guns, their counter-attack and assault ratings take a bit of a hit, but you won't really want to be getting these guys into assault anyway. Armor 1 better than the M1441. Movement is the same, and then you can see it can fire a barrage, So decent range in the barrels as you would expect, with firepower being okay, and then direct fire being 88, so 2 better than the M1441. You're also the same as the M1441, it has heat, so your opponent's armor doesn't go up by +1 for long range, as you'd expect. Less shots for MGs, but better gun, main gun. So that's why I tend to prefer the SEMOVENTEs. Next formation is the Bersaglieri Weapons Company. I don't like these just because you don't really get a lot of fighting units in each platoon. They're more kind of kitted out, I suppose, more defensively, because you have a HMG, a small anti-tank rifle, and then an anti-tank gun optional. It's basically they're trying to copy the Africa Corps rifle platoons, but not as good. And you can't have mortars in the formation either, but they're giving them their little 47mm guns, so one platoon can protect an objective while the other one tries and does something. Again, parachute engineers helping out with scout cars, 188 for a little bit of a punch, and for reserves, I've designed it around being the long SEMOVENTEs and the aircraft would be a good mix for reserves, and then we also have 4 SEMOVENTE 75s on table to help out early doors. Here we have the stats on the weapons platoon, so careful, 3+ save, and confident trained, and then good follow me and a very good rally as well, and the follow me gets better if you roll the 8 million bayonets dice and they become veteran. So they're rifle teams, so halted rate of fire 2, pinned 1, or moving 1. They also have a HMG. The 47mm gun is the same as the M1441, so it's not really going to do a lot. And the 20mm anti-tank gun, even worse. But if these guys are holding an objective, maybe it might keep away enemy tanks from assaulting them off. But there's not many of them to be running around taking objectives, and that's why the engineers are in this formation. And then this is the 47mm anti-tank platoon. So similar stats apart from the assault rating is worse being an anti-tank weapon. But these guys can move around quite nicely. But beware because they don't have a gun shield like most anti-tank guns do. So it's not going to be brilliant, and they're not going to be the best ambush weapon either, being anti-tank 6 and a 4+ firepower. So that's what that's one solitary 88 is in there for. So maybe it can pick off some the heavier tanks at long range, hopefully, and not die like my 88s tend to. Okay, and then we have a rifle company. So we have 2 platoons of 9. The other option is to have platoons of 5, which is a bit odd. I think if they had options to have 7, I think I'd probably have that, but 9 platoons means you can take a few casualties on the way to doing what you need with them. We also have the assault mortars, which we'll have a little look at. Regular 81mm mortars, which are quite decent, and I had a few points spent left over, so 47mm guns are in there. Again, the reserve option is the SEMOVENTE longs and the FALCOs. This time we also have some howitzers, again the scout cars, and again the trusted parachute engineer platoon. To point out, there is a command card you could use that lets you have night attack. It's about 4 points. I wouldn't take it going into a blind mission because you need to be the attacker and your opponent needs to have minefields. So you've wasted points if you take that. But if you want to take it, I suppose you could take away the 47mm anti-tank guns. But it's your choice. So we'll have a little look at the stats for the rifle platoon and the assault mortars. So the rifle platoon stat-wise is the same as the weapons platoon, but you only have your machine gun rifle teams as a weapon option, so which is pretty standard. So halted 2, moving rate of fire 1, but these guys are quite decent if you roll the 8 million bayonet dice, making them veteran. I tend to end up not having my infantry platoons or my artillery as veteran. Usually it's the stuff I don't need, like the HQ or like heavy machine guns and stuff like that. But it's always a good boost to have the extra motivation and skill. Now, the assault mortars are a funny little unit, but I quite like them because bringing them along with your infantry platoons if you're assaulting dug-in infantry, they're quite handy because you've got a fair few of them and they fire 6 shots halted and 3 move in. Overhead fire meaning the infantry platoons who will assault won't get in the way. It's 5+ firepower, so much easier to dig stuff out. And you can fire smoke rounds with them as well, so if you feel like you're not going to kill many infantry or they're already pinned, you could fire how many shots you have and put smoke markers down in front of them to help out the assaulting infantry. So yeah, they're quite good. They haven't got, Saver's still a 3+, even though being a large base, and they're not going to be great in assault, but you're not going to be putting them in assault. They're just a nice little support unit. They can move up with your assaulting platoons. Okay, so we have the Italian paratroopers. So 3 platoons. You can basically have one of your rifle teams replaced with a flamethrower for free. So I will be doing that with all 3 platoons because flamethrowers are great for digging out infantry, and they have 3 81mm mortars with them as well. The parachute company HQ is also SMGs rather than rifles than with the other 2 platoons, so that's good. You got a little bit more fire. Again, the SEMOVENTE FALCO reserve combination in effect. Had enough points for some M1441s just to move about with the infantry. Have enough points for an OP to go with the howitzer, and 3 scout cars for spearhead. So I don't actually have the unit card, but I have the book for the Italian paras. So as big noticeable difference is they don't have the 8 million bayonets column. That's because they're already fearless and trained. Follow Me still good on a 2+. They are trained on a 4+, but they assault on a 3+. So that's pretty good. Again, you have that 2-1 rifle combination like the infantry, but the flamethrower having 2 shots with an auto firepower. You need that hit, but all you need is 1 hit with a flamethrower, and you can pin an enemy unit. So these guys, I think they're really good personally. So now we have the heavy tank company, but I'm not using their the P2640 because there was only a handful of them around when Italy got invaded. So it'll be an M1441 as a HQ, 5 SEMOVENTE longs, and 2 units of 5 SEMOVENTE 75s. Again, they're SEMOVENTE long, can fit in reserve with something else, or you can put the 2 SEMOVENTE 75s in reserve. Again, the para assault engineer platoon, again, they were cut out for them here. 3 scout cars and the 2 SEMOVENTE 90mm because they had enough points, and they're quite fun, quirky. I got the models and I'd like to use them at some point. I'm not sure how many of them were around in the desert. I think they were around, but we'll have a look at their stats right at the end. Finally, we can see the stats for the SEMOVENTE long. It's appeared in so many lists, but we haven't seen it yet. Now, armor-wise, it's the same as the SEMOVENTE 75, as you'd expect. It's the same chassis. All the stats, you can skip that, it's all the same. But then you go down to the long 75mm artillery, 2+ firepower, 4+, 2 on the anti-tank, 4+ firepower, but then the gun 80-10, 3+. Hasn't got heat, but oh well, it's 89 effective at long range. That's going to tear through Lee's okay, and Sherman's, obviously they can still bounce it, but they're going to struggle, and these are units of 5 or 6 you'll be fielding. So if you have a good vantage point with these guys, range 28 isn't amazing, but decent enough. And again, 3 MGs, but just these guys are pretty much always in my list, just to give the Italians some decent anti-tank with their armor. So now we're into the command card formation. So this is the motorcycle company. Quite fun because basically you just get a little extra mobility with your infantry. The only problem is your platoons can't be more than 5 teams, but I have used it once and it was quite fun. And again, similar combination of the SEMOVENTE long and the M1441 Falcos. So although your platoons are quite short, you do have some decent stuff to come around and back them up. We'll have a little look at their command cards and what makes them different. As you can see, their movement increases a lot, and then basically you discard this card and then they revert to the normal stats. But it's quite fun. I suppose a lot of older players still have the models for the motorcycle infantry and would like to use them, and there's this card for it. So it's nice just to get infantry quickly onto an objective if it's open. What mission did we play with it? I think it was like the Vanguard mission that they did. It was like a really weird mission where you build points accumulatively. It's strange. I don't know if it's even in the new missions pack, but quite a quirky, fun formation. So now we're on to the Assault Engineer Company. So as you noticed, I've used Parachute Assault Engineers in pretty much every list. You can use these ones if you don't have the Paratroop models. The only problem is they're 4 points more expensive, as you can see here. And we'll have a look at their stats, but they're pioneers, so they're quite good again through minefields. You can use that command card to let them do a night attack to help them out as well. And again, same reserve combination with howitzers and scout cars to back them up. So similar stats with the assault pioneers, apart from they're pioneers, so they can get through minefields and dig in much easier, and a good mix of weapons. They have flamethrowers, they have the little Brixia mortar to help out as well. But a good unit, but because you get that so much extra in the platoon, it just bumped the cost up. So as I said, 4 more points than the paratrooper ones, but you do get more with them. But 15 points is a fair bit to be knocking around in one unit. So finally, the Parachute Assault Engineers getting a formation of their own, 3 platoons of them, so pretty decent, and some mortars as well. And again, the SEMOVENTE FALCO combination for reserves. I suppose you can always use German armor in your list, which is you're allowed to with the Avanti book. Swap in Panzer IVs or Panzer IIIs for the SEMOVENTE longs. But if you want a purebred Italian army, then stick with the SEMOVENTE longs. And finally, we get to see the Pioneers. Again, no unit card for these, sorry. So the same as the Paratroopers, apart from they have the Pioneer rule. And that's it, really, for them. Again, I'd rather them than regular rifle platoons or regular paratroopers because they got Pioneers. Just being able to get into that minefield a little bit easier can help out a lot. So 2 other formations you can build, so basically scout car companies and a scout tank company. Wouldn't probably tend to use these because the scout cars and the scout tank are not great compared to the other scout units in mid-war knocking about, but I thought I'd show them to show your options. And the scout tank company you can field as a tank company, which we'll have a look at now. So the L640 you can field as a regular tank company, so they lose spearhead and scout, but I don't know why you'd want to do this. I suppose if you were trying to do a late early war game, yeah, maybe, but in mid-war these tanks, they're even worse than the M1441s, and nah, I wouldn't. But yeah, if you were trying to recreate an early war battle, then yeah, I suppose that's why you would use this card. Now to close off the video, we'll have a little look at the units that featured quite heavily in most of the lists. So we have the CR-42 Falco. I don't tend to take a lot of aircraft in my lists, but this thing being only 5 points, I think it's okay. 5 points, I think, is a good points for aircraft. And considering it can do a bit of everything, MGs and bombs, not too bad either. And with the SEMOVENTEs, it can just sit in reserve and come in when it needs to. So confident trained, now this is the one you really want your 8 million bayonets dice on, so you can drop your bombs a bit easier. Now anti-tank 4 ain't bad for a bomb with 5-point aircraft. The only problem is the firepower will let it down, but it should stop your opponent bunching up their aircraft. Sorry, anti-tank 3, sorry, and 3+ firepower. So I was looking at the MGs. MGs are not that good. You'll only have 4 shots with these guys if both of them are still alive. But you know, it's something that can make your opponent sweat a little bit and reach enemy units that are potentially trying to hide to stay alive. And then we have the AB-41 Scout Car stats, what you'd expect from the Italians and being a scout unit. Front armor 1, that's pretty much all the scouts are about front armor 1 unless they're the 8 rads. Tactical, terrain and dash, quite slow, and the gun ain't great. 85 and a 5+ firepower. Does have quite a few MGs though. Really, once it's done its spearhead move, it's pretty much done its job, although you're not going to get a massive spearhead move from it. Sometimes though you can move them around because you need to shoot at them at some point because they can be a bit of a nuisance, so especially the other targets might be needed over them, but being scout can help them out a bit, and being the amount of MGs they have, they can be an anti-infantry threat too. The 100mm howitzer, I always tended to change them to captured 25-pounders, but they changed it so it was actually, it cost more. So basically you were able to field 25-pounders for 12 points, which is cheaper than the British could do it, which I found quite strange and also nice. But now I'll be fielding them as 100mm howitzers. 25-pounders does give you a bit more of a rounded gun. So careful, fearless, trained, 8mm bayonets is going to be great because they'll be veteran. The actual use them as artillery is great because it's 3+ firepower with anti-tank 3. Now, direct fire, they'll only ever have one shot. 89 and a 2+ firepower, so decent, but they are forward firing, so they tend to get sneaked up a bit. And also being, you know, once things are sneaking up and being this close to your artillery, you're in trouble anyway. But if you use them as they're meant to be used as an artillery unit, you've got your smoke bombardment and a decent way of digging out infantry and picking off the odd tank here and there. And the final one, the SEMOVENTE in 90, it only featured in one list, but I thought it'd be fun to show it. So it's aggressive, the only Italian unit I know to be aggressive unless you downgrade stuff. It is trained and confident with associated stats of a self-propelled gun. It's very slow, but as you'd expect, it's carrying a 90mm gun on top of it. But then let's have a look at the 90mm gun. It's got 2 shots, halted, 1 move in, and it's AT-14 with a 3+ firepower with a 40-inch range, so it's basically an 88. But it is slow firing, so if you move it, you're gonna not be hitting stuff with it. But those two that one list, there was 2 of them. So if you just sit them at the back, you have 4 big long-range shots that should keep away medium and heavy armor. And that's it for the Avanti Italian mid-war. They've been quite fun to play with, you know, quite stressful at times, but it is good. They're good fun, and I know a lot of you are really good hard fans of the Avanti. So next mid-war book we'll look at is probably the American Fighting First.